The sun rose gently over a modest two-story house on Maplewood Drive. Inside, the small apartment smelled of fried eggs and coffee, a scent that usually brought comfort, but today it carried a hint of unease. Ethan Carter, a man in his mid-40s with tired eyes and worn-out clothes, was staring at the peeling paint on the wall. Across the kitchen, his daughter, Amara, 18, was carefully folding her school books, humming softly. Her long braided hair swung over her shoulder as she moved, unaware of the storm brewing in her father's mind. Life had always been hard for them. Ethan had lost his job at the factory 2 years earlier, and debts had piled up like a dark shadow over their small home. Amara had always been the bright spot, the one who smiled even when the cupboards were empty, but that brightness only reminded Ethan of his failures. Bills stacked on the counter, eviction notices slipped under the door, the lights threatening to go out any day. Desperation had seeped into him quietly, poisoning his thoughts. One evening, after another argument about money, Ethan sat alone in the dim glow of a single lamp. He thought about a solution, one he had never imagined he would consider. It was a woman from Charlotte, North Carolina, wealthy, powerful, and known to take young women into her home as assistants, who had offered him money in exchange for Amara. At first, Ethan recoiled at the thought, anger and shame mixing in his chest, but the weight of his failures, the gnawing fear of losing everything, eventually twisted his heart. Amara never saw it coming. One afternoon, when she returned from her part-time job at a local diner, her father spoke with an eerie calm. "Amara, I got a chance for us to be safe, for you to have a better life," he said, avoiding her gaze. Before she could question him, the words hit like a cold wind. He had sold her. The journey to Charlotte was long and silent. Amara sat in the back seat, staring out the window at towns like Durham and Concord, every mile widening the chasm between her childhood and the unknown. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear, betrayal, and disbelief. She had been her father's pride, his companion, and yet he had traded her safety for money. When they arrived, Madeline Harper was the woman who would define the next decade of her life. Madeline was striking, impeccably dressed, with an air of control that made the room feel smaller. "You'll work hard here," she said without warmth, "and you'll learn what it means to survive." Amara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She had no choice. The first weeks were brutal. Amara was assigned to clean the vast Harper mansion from dawn until late at night. She scrubbed floors, washed dishes, polished silver, and organized closets, all while enduring Madeline's sharp critiques. "Do it better," Madeline would snap. "Do it properly, or you'll regret it." Amara's hands cracked, her back ached, and loneliness gnawed at her. Nights were the hardest, sleeping on a thin mattress in a small attic room far from the life she had known. Months turned into years. Amara's only solace was the small library in the house, where she found borrowed books and taught herself about business, finance, and the world beyond cleaning. She observed Madeline's social circle, noticed patterns in wealth and influence, and learned quietly from the shadows. Madeline, blind to Amara's growing intellect, continued to use her as a tool, but Amara began shaping her mind into a weapon. There were moments that cut deep. Madeline would sometimes call Amara into her office for personal errands, dressing her in clothes that were too adult, expecting composure and obedience. Amara endured, biting back tears, knowing resistance would only make her suffering worse. Yet with each hardship, she grew stronger, more determined. She began to dream not just of escape, but of thriving. By the time Amara turned 25, she had accumulated small victories in silence. She managed household accounts, suggested improvements in Madeline's minor business dealings, and slowly became indispensable, though still unappreciated. Her education in resilience and cunning was complete, hidden beneath the guise of a humble servant. The turning point came when she met a client of Madeline's, a young entrepreneur who took interest in her insight during a chance encounter. He saw the intelligence and poise behind her timid exterior. With careful planning, Amara began saving, investing, and slowly building her own independent projects. Madeline, still controlling, remained unaware that the seed of her former captive's rise was sprouting right under her roof. At 28, Amara stepped out into the world of Charlotte, not as a cleaner, but as a young businesswoman with her own company, a consultancy helping small startups. Her first office overlooked the city skyline, a symbol of all the struggle she had endured. When Ethan tried to contact her, she listened quietly and then chose silence, her heart heavy but unbroken. She had survived betrayal, endured abuse, and transformed pain into power. Her story spread quietly at first, whispered in local news and among business circles, then across social media. It became an emblem of resilience, showing that even when the world seems cruel and unfair, perseverance and intelligence can forge a path to success. People wept at her tale, inspired by her courage and determination, and millions learned the lesson that adversity, though painful, can be the teacher of strength. And through it all, Amara never forgot. She remembered the betrayal, the nights of suffering, the endless scrubbing of floors, and the sting of being used. But she also remembered her own power, the fire that refused to die. Her story became a beacon, a modern tale of heartbreak, endurance, and triumph, set against the streets of Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte, proving that even from the deepest betrayal, greatness can rise.